Dorsey had the conversation this week about Bitcoin fails if it doesn't break the store value narrative. You guys want to talk about that? Because I think it's interesting.
It's a loaded one, Isaiah, but we should at least cover it.
I have some thoughts, and I think Jack's wrong, but that's
spicy.
It just depends on how are you framing success or failure. And I think it's so unique to each individual. But if Bitcoin just became a store value asset that was a non-state asset that you could hold and control and it didn't become money, do I think that would be success in my book? No, I think Bitcoin is obviously much more than that. I think we would all agree with that. And to Brady's point, it's like the medium exchange part is coming. Like that is coming. The store value comes first, and there's lots of great writers and folks that have talked about this forever. But if it's just a digital gold, it's only digital gold, and you look at gold's market cap from here, that's a 10x. Like that purchasing power, is that success for someone that saves into that asset? To me, that's yes. That's still a yes. If someone can save into an asset and they can increase in purchasing power so they can do the things they want to do in their life, that's still not a failure. I get what he's trying to say, but yeah, I think that it will be more. But yes, I don't think it's a failure if it becomes store value.
I heard him say that he called out the title of the white paper, right? If we don't get back to the title of the white paper, Bitcoin will be a failure. That's the way I read that was this was the original mission of Bitcoin. We need to have Bitcoin be the currency of the internet and medium of exchange. I've said this before, but I don't think I've said it very often. I wonder if Satoshi was very wise about many things and thought this system through extremely thoroughly and thought through the distribution of the coins, the distribution schedule. And part of that had to have been an understanding of how to bootstrap the network. So he's thinking about how to bootstrap the network. I think he probably figured out no one's going to use this as a store of value right out of the gate. There's just, you have to build up trust, and adoption in order for people to see it as a store of value and hold it over the long term. So the first initial use case is going to be, and if you look at monetary history, money starts out as a curious collectible, right? I think is how Nick Szabo puts it. It's a curious collectible. And it's something that a small number of people value. They think it's interesting. They want to engage with it, make it a part of their lives. It's something that they really enjoy. And that's what happened with the cypherpunks. This was something they've been working on for decades, was cash, online cash. How do you make it work? And so that was very interesting to them. And the only use case at that point could not have been store value. It could only have been payments. And so is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And I would imagine, to me, I'd like to think that Satoshi thought that through. And of course, it's a good store of value. That's also coded into the system. It may not be the title of the white paper, but it's a strict limit of 21 million coins. No inflation, can't inflate it, right? So it's the definition of a good store of value in the code. It may not have been the title of the white paper and the way it was quote unquote marketed initially, but that's because you can't just jump straight to store of value. So I don't think Satoshi necessarily thought that Bitcoin should only be peer-to-peer cash because that was the title of the white paper. I just don't think that. He's too thoughtful about putting everything together. I think he thought that through. As we know from monetary history, you go from curious collectible to a stage store of value, a speculative store of value, to an established store of value, to a medium of exchange, to a unit of account where you're pricing things in Bitcoin. And that's where we are. Medium of exchange is going to happen. It's just going to take time and patience. Adoption by big governments and big corporations using Bitcoin as a store of value is not going to prevent the natural evolution of this money into also being a medium of exchange.
Did you guys see NVK had a good tweet about that, Brady? He said, Bitcoin peer-to-peer payments won't happen until people need it, not because you want it.
Yeah.
Right now, people need anti-debasement protection. That's why HODL doesn't need much convincing. I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think he's right on.
100%. And Brady, yeah, you definitely said some stuff there that I think is spot on and I had not really considered before. So I'd need to think more deeply about it, but that was fantastic. Because I think what you're getting at is we've all seen, most Bitcoiners could repeat this, what you went through: collectible, store of value, medium exchange, unit of account. And generally speaking, I do think that's true, but it's almost like there's a nuance at the beginning when it's brand new and you're telling people why to use it, especially for Bitcoin specifically. When it's coming about in this digital age, you're saying it was way easier to say, hey guys, digital payments tool.
Yeah.
On day one, you never could have said to someone, hey guys, digital store of value, put your life savings in here. We just started, but put your life savings in here.
Even though the properties of the network are the perfect store of value, but it's just, it's too early. No one's going to use it for that. They want to collect Bitcoin and mine it because it's cool and it's interesting. And you have these group of friends online that are trading Bitcoin back and forth like a Pokemon card or something. It doesn't really have monetary value yet. Just people are trading it around until Lazo bought the pizzas. And that's the curious collectible part of it. People are just mining with their CPUs and getting 50 coins. And there's this little fun competition. How many do you have? How many do you have? And that's all it was, to the point where Laszlo's like, yeah, I'll throw 10,000 Bitcoins at some pizzas. So it was just a curiosity, something fun, something interesting, a project they were drawn to. And yeah, the first use case of these people who are on the internet and like really excited about this project Vcash is going to be to exchange it for goods and services and just collect it. Yeah.
Maybe the way to frame it is that the first actual usage amongst the nerds and the insiders is going to be collectibles and payments. Actually, none of the nerds are really going to use it for store of value, even because they're like, hey, this is brand new. Okay, could it store value one day, but not right now. So it, in a weird way, the insider group skipped over store of value. But that, I don't think that changes the fact that the first widespread usage is still going to be store of value. You're not going to get widespread, I'm talking millions and millions of people to use it for payments. And that could launch into, I wrote a tweet about this past weekend, all the reasons why I think people forget how hard, when you're talking about using it for payments, you have to compare to what we use for payments today, which most places is, let's just talk about the US, it's the dollar. So you have to talk about how entrenched the dollar is and how good or bad of a job the dollar does for payments. And whether people like to hear it or not, the dollar actually does a pretty good job at payments. So I don't think that means Bitcoin has failed. It just means that developed countries don't really have a major payments problem. And to points that Isaiah and Brady, I think both of you made, we're not saying it never will get to payments. We're just saying eventually it will. It's not what's needed now. And it takes a really long time to displace the dollar. So that's where I come down on it.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I would say, the other thing is so many people, unless you're really, I would say, intellectually interested in Bitcoin, which again, us here, people watching probably fit that category, but broad use of Bitcoin as medium of exchange, no one wants to deal with capital gains treatment. So, Bitcoin strategic reserve, great, cool, awesome. You want to see Bitcoin adoption happen, treat it as money. It is money, and allow it to freely float and compete against the dollar as payments, as all those things. That's when I think you could see it change. And maybe there's some de minimis rule. Maybe it's going to be a stepwise function. It's going to take time. And back to a lot of stuff that you said, very well, Brady, it's that part of this is coming, but people need to hold it, understand it, get to know what Bitcoin is for the bigger adoption. But yeah, it is interesting on the early side. Yeah, send it, spend it, do whatever. Like it's not real yet for store value. And then all of a sudden it's, it is. You could go to a website and click, give me 5 Bitcoin, and it was free and you could just go get it because people are giving it away, right? What's that one worth today?
There were literal faucets where you could just go get Bitcoin.
Wild.
I think the demand that will bootstrap medium of exchange for Bitcoin doesn't come from the consumer side. It comes from the producer or the business side. Because the business is stacking Bitcoin, right, for their treasury. And it's just a natural extension to be like, okay, you have to pay me in Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin. I don't want the dollar because I'm just going to buy Bitcoin for my treasury anyway. So that's, I think, where it comes from. And then consumers are forced, if they want to interact with these businesses, to pay in Bitcoin. Or business might say, I'll give you a discount if you pay me in Bitcoin, right? They're not going to have network fees for Visa and MasterCard and stuff. First of all, they're not going to have to go and buy the Bitcoin. They're going to just stick it right in their savings account. So to me, that's where the demand comes that produces the new exchange phase. And so it's not necessarily that it'll be caused by a trouble with dollar-based payment systems. It'll be because businesses are demanding it.
Shout out to Michael in the chat who called out the capital gains issue as well that Isaiah was speaking to. Yeah, one last thought, Gresham's law, right? So if you have two competing concerned currencies, the stronger of the two will be kept as store of value, right? You're going to get rid of your less strong, weaker currency before you give away your store value currency. So I think that's what's happening now. And I don't know, I've purchased with Bitcoin before, but for the most part, like I'd probably give my dirty fiat before I give them my Bitcoin.
Yep.